Take heed of that barrel, Peter. Away she goes. Hello, John. Right here, we make some of the best whiskey in Virginia. And I should know. My father, rest his Scottish soul, taught me everything a laddie should know about making a fine spirit. You might even call me an expert. The name is Anderson, James Anderson, and I'm General Washington's farm manager. Perhaps you've heard of me.
I was born in Scotland in 1745. My father was a farmer on the River Forth, a wee stretch north of Edinburgh. I farmed nigh on 20 years, growing corn and rye to make the spirit we Scots are so proud of, whiskey. But in 1791, I made a bold move and set sail for America. I was no lad, nearly 47 years of age, but the opportunities to be had in this young country inspired me.
I found myself here in Mount Vernon. I prefer working for the General more than any job I've known, but I had a plan that went far beyond growing corn and rye. One day, I set about sharing that plan with a man who was known as one of the most imaginative, and dare I say it, one of the most ambitious businessmen in all of United America, George Washington.
Sir, I beg leave to observe that a distillery, properly conducted, is one of the best means for the improving of a farm.
Let's take all this corn and rye we've been growing and turn it into liquid gold, whiskey.
Father, a letter here from General Washington.
But there was a problem. The General did not share my enthusiasm. He had so many other ventures to tend to already, and he was not getting any younger. He was also concerned about the type of people a distillery might attract. But there was one thing that could make the General pay attention, and that was making a profit. A while back, he had changed over from growing tobacco to grains, as it brought in a stronger return at market. He built one of the smartest automated grist mills in America. This mill brings in a handsome profit, but I was certain we could make even more.
I knew with the grain from the grist mill and the water from our creek, we could start a new venture making the best like spirit in America, whiskey. The timing was perfect.
Rum was the preferred drink in the colonies, but rum was made from molasses, and molasses came from the West Indies, a British colony. After the Revolution, anything British was not so popular.
Whiskey, on the other hand, was so popular that it was customary for politicians to treat voters to liquor at Virginia's polling places. Washington once lost an election because he failed to do so. From then on, he always treated, and he always won.
And in 1797, the good General decided to make my dream a reality, which you might say was a wee bit ironic. Not many years back, as President Washington, he had levied an excise tax on distilled spirits and stirred up quite a revolt called the Whiskey Rebellion. He wasn't against the making of spirits at all, far from it, as he was partial to the odd tipple himself. But after 8 long years of war with the British, his new government was deep in debt and desperately in need of money.
Oh, that's a fine bird. When we first started making the whiskey, we had only 2 stills over yonder in the cooperage. But after tasting the rewards of our first year's distilling, the General decided to build this spanking new stone building large enough to house 5 stills. He also built this fine flume to bring us water straight from the creek.
We made rye whiskey, and we did a bonny trade. 4,000 gallons of it in our first year. And by 1799, we were making more than 10,000 gallons.
After all this talk about whiskey, you'll no doubt be wondering what magic goes into the making of a wee dram. Away with you, Timothy, put your back into it. Turning grain into spirits takes a heap of muscle and a heap of know-how. This beauty here is called a hogshead, and she can hold up to 120 gallons. You start with 9 gallons of water heated to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Then add to it 40 pounds of Indian cornmeal. You got to be sure to give the mash a good stirring. Then let it stand for 2 hours. Don't blister yourself there, Daniel. Then you add boiling hot water and add 10 pounds of malt. Mind the time and temperature now, Daniel. If she's too hot for too long, we'll have whiskey that tastes like burnt toast. Next, you add 40 pounds of rye, work it well, and let it set. Good work, Nat. Then you add your yeast. Cover it and leave it until it's fit for the still. The resulting brew is poured into one of those beauties, a copper pot still, and heated by a wood fire. Here's where a wee bit of magic takes place.
Alcohol turns into gas at a lower temperature than water. So, as it heats up, it rises to the upper chamber of the still and flows down into a spiral tube called a worm tube. The vapours travel down the worm and through the tub, which is filled with cool running water. The cold water flowing around the tube condenses the vapours back into liquid that's 30 to 40% alcohol.
All of our whiskey is distilled at least twice to give it even more of a kick. There are plenty of folks around here who are quite happy to buy this lovely spirit for 50 cents a gallon and up. But the fancy trade likes their whiskey even smoother, and for these discerning gentlemen, we run it through the still a few more times. At more than 100 proof, this lovely spirit sells for up to $1 a gallon. Now, that's what I call liquid gold.
The distillery carried on after George and Martha Washington died, even after I left Mount Vernon. It saddens me to tell you that in 1814, the distillery burnt down and was all but forgotten for nigh 2 centuries. Then, in 1997, something remarkable happened. Archaeologists discovered the distillery's foundation and got a pretty good idea of how we designed it. Over the next few years, a distillery just like the one I ran for General Washington was built here where my dream once stood, and in 2007 it was up and running.
This is the only place in this country where you can see how whiskey was brewed back in my day. And it's a darn good dram. Here's to you.